G'day subscribers. Today we're going to talk about engine lifting. You're with Jules Knight for a very short episode on Jive Talking Garage. Now, since I was a kid, from about 1979 for FJs and probably a little bit before that, I would help my mate Mark Costello pull engines in and out of cars. Mark's dad started off with a black FJ Ute, which was beautiful, and then had Broms and Fairlanes. Nice cars, all really good cars. Now, Mark is a qualified mechanic, and I would help him with whatever bits and pieces, and I was never mechanically gifted, and probably to this day I know enough to get into trouble but not enough to get out of trouble. But anyway, let's put that aside. Now, I'd help Mark with lifting motors, and then when I went to stay with the Braids Trust for a few years, and I would help them with the engine hook. And we would put motors and gearboxes in and out and diffs and whatever else. And then when I had my own place with Tracy and the kids, it was probably our fourth house. It's a big Queenslander, Norman Park, so nice big beams underneath. And so I decided with my Mustangs I was going to freshen things up a little bit. The GT that I had and also the convertible needed the engines taken out, so I got a block and tackle from Repco and the appropriate amount of chain, and I would take the head bolts out in each of the corners, and I would put the chain around them. So look, the chain is really sturdy. If you're going to use shackles on them, I don't know whether that's a great idea or not, but if you do, make sure it would be rated, and they're the ones with the yellow ends on them. So, one of the methods to take a motor out is to use chain on a block and tackle. So the lifting mechanism itself could be a block and tackle or an engine crane. Now, later on in the episode, you'll see my engine crane. You can pick them up, Facebook, Marketplace, those sorts of things, Trading Post, whatever. And I got mine for about $100. $100 of fun. And the nice thing about putting a motor out or in is the fact that it's a really good team building exercise. Everybody, to do it safely, has to chip in, coordinate, do their jobs. But like with any truly good job, you need one leader. And the leader is the one who coordinates everything and calls the shots. And okay, so you've got the jack underneath, and you've got the engine crane, and you're doing the jigging on the moving the crane up and down, and I'm guiding it in and whatever. So everyone's got a job. I've done it by myself with auto and manual, and I've done it with others. But I have to say, on Sunday, it was the smoothest engine installation I've ever been on, but we'll get to that. So we've talked about chain. Now, I got this engine lifter as part of a deal that I bought a whole heap of new old stock parts and whatever. So what this one is you take the manifold off, and around where the middle of the engine is, for this particular bolt, that's where you attach one of the bolts to that and one of the bolts through that, do the bolts up, and then here's your lifting point. So then that will be sort of over the motor. So this has been, it's been nicely made. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good little engine lifting tool, and it's not a drama in the sliders to use. So from that perspective, not a bad little piece of kit. Very simple to make, very simple to use, and what more could you want? However, the best one is this one, which is the Holden designed engine lifting hook. Now, what happens is this attachment part slides down between the manifold and the side of the block and head. So this actually goes onto the side of the head. Now, this one, normally they put socks or something around here for a nice cushioning material, and in it goes. So now the trick with this is the way Holden have designed it, and from everything of the Holden genuine material that I've read, it tells you one thing. Now, if you are pulling out an engine by itself or putting an engine in by itself, it will be a case of those two hooks are together, and the engine hook itself, whether it be from the block and tackle or the engine crane, goes around both rings. So then it's a straight balanced lift up and down. Okay, so that's what happens there. But on the weekend, in consultation with the troncolator, so he, John and myself did the engine installation, and I'd said to Russell, you're the leader, because Russell is a Holden guru. There's nothing that Russell hasn't done, whether it be FJs or EHs or whatever, and with his time, owning Fulcrum suspension and all of his suspension work before then as an apprentice and everything like that. And John, for that matter, fitter and turner, mechanic, engineer, instrument fitter. I'm working with two really technical guys who know their stuff. So it was a real pleasure. So what happens is we slip the engine lift into position. And so what happens as the weight is taken up, so this goes over the tappet cover, this part. So as the weight is taken up, what happens is this corrects itself so that this pushes itself in against the motor. And then these tabs here lock against the manifold. So as a consequence, with these two that are here, what happens is they lock it in place and allow you, with the motion of it being locked with these ends against the motor, and then these tabs locking underneath the manifold itself, it allows the engine to be extracted. So what we did was we had decided, okay, so the motor's painted, the gearbox is painted, we're going to put the new old stock pressure plate and clutch in place. We had, as I've shown you before, it's important to have special tools, and you've got to have a clutch locator, because you need the clutch in the center to go where the spline of the gearbox will go through. So you need that locator to put it in place first. That's easy. You have four bolt holes in the flywheel. Let me show you. Wow, they're heavy. Okay, so that's a flywheel. So you can see it's got multiple holes in there, but this one, those ones there, those four at 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, they are where the pressure plate gets bolted. And that's really easy because they're just bolts that are used to locate the position. But here's the difference. If you're putting an engine in and you're just pulling the engine only, up or down, 2 rings. But what Holden will tell you is motor and gearbox installation or removal, front ring. Now you can see what's happened there. So we've gone from level to front ring. Now that is not a coincidence. That level, that angle has been calculated by the Holden engineers, and this is their tool. This is their tool that they sold as a spare part, or as a part, not a spare part, as a part. And by the Holden engineers calculating that and saying, well, that's the right angle that you need, that allows you to put a mated motor and gearbox into the engine bay. Now, you'll see from my pictures, it's like that. It's at the right angle. Now, what we did to make it even easier, I had the engine crane, so that's on wheels, on 6 wheels. I also had the car, the FJ, on a hoist. But what I did is I dropped the hoist all the way down to make it easy for the installation, so you're not having to have it far off the ground at all. So as the engine and gearbox went in, I then put a trolley jack underneath of it, and then when we got it at the right location, I had, thank you, Louis, thanks for telling us, I put some material at the back of the motor so it wouldn't scratch the firewall, and I was sort of keeping an eye on it. But my job was to use the jack underneath the gearbox with rubber over the top of it, such that when it was in the right place, I was jacking up the back of the motor, which as a fulcrum and lever made the front of the motor come down, and then we could move the jack down a little so that it would then easily fit into the front engine mount holes. Thank you, Louis. Thank you, Louis. So once the front engine mount was done up, Louis is trying to tell me something. It's okay, folks. So do up the front engine mount, do up the 2 side engine mounts, bracket, and then from the bracket, you've got the brackets that go from the engine mount itself to the engine where the gearbox is on each side. And then that's it. And I have to tell you, it was the smoothest engine installation that I've been on since I was helping Mark when I was a kid. I put plenty of motors in and out with the Brains Trust as well, and I've done quite a few by myself. I've done one with Tony Mango, but the one with Russell and John, best ever. Looked really good, very happy, but it was all to do with the Brains Trust. My engine hook's out of action at the moment. That's a whole different story. But the Brains Trust allowed me to use their engine hook, and I've got to tell you, by using that front ring and getting it into the right angle, allowed everything to go so smoothly. It was really easy, but it was extremely important to have 1 litre, and I had to, and everyone has input, and it's important to call something out when something's not quite right. However, 1 litre, doesn't matter whether it's putting an engine and gearbox in or whatever is the case, but you need somebody who knows what they're doing. And I had the Brains Trust who wanted to come and help. I had Tony Mango who wanted to come and help. And as it turned out, John was on hand. It was Russell and I. We would have been fine to do it. I've done this type of thing all by myself, and I'm not a mechanic. But anyway, we'll show you some photos. But at the end of the photos, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. But more importantly, enjoy your Holden.